So my name's Sabine. I'm the director of Epilepsy, the feature-length documentary film, and I am here today with Grace and Bree, the hosts and founders of What's Shaking podcast, which is committed to being honest about life with epilepsy and helping us feel more open and learning different ways to cope with what life throws our way.
So I was diagnosed when I was 17. I had a 20-minute, my mom thought it was a stroke. I was completely out of it, doing repetitive movements, saying things that didn't make sense. And my mom was like, what is going on? And we learned that it was a 20-minute seizure, absence seizure. And so I was in status for that. And I go on medication eventually after I find a good neurologist. And my seizure types keep changing. I've had focal aware, focal unaware, the absence, the grand mals, like you name it. I probably have had it at some point. And I got genetic testing done, and we found out that I have a genetic mutation that has most likely caused my epilepsy.
Mine has been pretty complicated, I guess you could say. It randomly showed up on me when I was about 17, 18 years old. I was driving my little brother and sister to school, and I just fell on the floor and blacked out essentially. And we had no idea why. Nobody else in my family has epilepsy. And my little brother, who was like obsessed with learning medical stuff, wanted to go to medical school. So he calls my mom. He's like, I think she's having seizures. And my mom's like, I don't know. That's not really what a seizure is because we didn't know. And then come to find out, he was 100% correct. And I started at a neurologist. He thought I just had right temporal lobe epilepsy that was triggered solely by stress. And then I come and keep seeing him for about 10 years. And one day he looks at me and he goes, I don't know what to do with you anymore. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to send you to an epileptologist. And I'd never heard that word before. And so he sent me to UCLA, where I still go. And after about 9 months of being at UCLA, my epileptologist was like, you're drug resistant and you're going to need brain surgery. And I'm sitting there going, that was a huge jump. But okay. So I've had technically 3 brain surgeries because I had the SEEG and I have the RNS implanted right there. And come to find out, I have multiple types of epilepsy and about 7 types of seizures. All of them start down in my hippocampus. They had no idea where they were before. They couldn't see them on just the standard EEG. So mine are semi-controlled compared to what they were before. Mine were I was having about 1,000 a day, as crazy as that sounds. And then now I still have them, but my RNS tracks them and slows them down and stops it as much as it can. But about up to 6 times a month, maybe if I'm lucky, they will come through and I'll fail one. But brain surgery has definitely been a lifesaver for me, literally, even if it is scary as all you know what. So it was worth it.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, the brain surgery route I've been learning more about the last month as well, and seeing how it's a case per case and how much it can help. And so I'm glad that that is it's interesting because we all have such different journeys, but then share similar struggles. Like I could find commonalities between both of you and my story right now as I'm listening. But yeah, with all of our journeys coming together too, I wanted to see how you both met and how your stories intertwined and you got here now.
Well, that's a very interesting story. So I was teaching, and the stress of working in the classroom was giving me seizures and migraines basically every day. And I was like, I can't do this for my health. And I left the classroom. And as soon as I left, I was like, I'm going to make an epilepsy page to bring awareness. I'm going to do what I can. And so I started following Bree through that. And then one day I opened my DMs and there's this group message, and everyone in it has epilepsy somewhere in their name or their bio. And we are getting sent flashing lights by a group of people who claim to be from the UK. And they were saying that they wanted to off all white people with epilepsy, all white Americans with epilepsy. And we were like, no. And so I became friends with Bree because she and I were both figuring out like how to report this to the police and the FBI and what we can do to stop it from happening. So that was interesting. Of course, Instagram was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with this when we report them. And we're like, yeah, there is.
And neither one of us are photosensitive, so I just got extremely angry and just decided to basically use every bad word in the text in like the century to curse them out. And then like we just started talking because everyone else was so, I think, scared or taken aback, I don't know, but it's like, or photosensitive, I'm not sure, but we were just like, you know what, F this is not gonna happen again. So then from then on, we just kept talking and literally talk pretty much every single day.
For a
And
while, we were FaceTiming every day, like just like,
yeah.
what are you doing?
And I made my page, I guess, like she said, she followed me. This is the SoCal Epilepsy page, because I was very depressed when I found out that I had to go through brain surgery and shave my head. Like, as you can see, my hair is very long. It's always been very long. And I had to shave it all off. And I was just so upset. And my mom had been encouraging me to make a page. I'm like, no, I don't want to. I'm like, that's so lame. I don't want to. And then I get to my neuropsychiatrist before brain surgery, and he's like, you need to make a page. He's like, go connect with people like you. And I'm like, fine. Because it was like an assignment from him. And then I did, but it seemed to work out just well. Like I've made tons of friends on there, and I have a place to vent about whatever I want as far as epilepsy, and people get it that follow along because they have epilepsy or kids or somebody with epilepsy. So it's kind of an outlet for me, but it helps other people. So it's kind of a double win at the same time. That was a fun story, wasn't it, when we met? Wasn't at an epilepsy convention.
No, it was a, basically a death threat. Attempted murder, basically.
Yeah.
I hope those people got like reported and taken care of, because that is just, I'm very sorry you guys had to go through that. And it's so like, it's gross. It's really gross that someone would
Yeah, I
even.
had my page for like a week at that point. I'm like, are you kidding me?
It's like, welcome. Like,
Yeah, but but also what you were saying, Bree, with having that group chat you said, where you can kind of, talk about anything with epilepsy and people actually understand you, which is something that's so important to have, whether it's one friend, whether it's a group chat or community. And I definitely see that in the way that you're going about the podcast. And so I wanted to see like what, given once you met each other and both your epilepsy journeys connected, what then motivated you both to start this podcast together?
Yeah, Bree had reached out to me. Oh, my voice just cracked. Bree had reached out to me. It was in the middle of like the height of the pandemic, and we both were just kind of bored. Neither of us really had that much work. And she's like, do you want to start a podcast and we can have people on to share their journeys and raise awareness? And I was like, sure. And that's pretty much how it started, just getting people to talk about it more. Because we had listened to Greg Grunberg's podcast and everything. And she's like, we should start our own. And Bree is very good with like, she has a very creative side, me not so much. So I'm like, you handle how you want things to look, how you want it to go, and I'll just kind of be there.
and she's the one that keeps me sane and not going to like Picasso on it, I guess you could say. And then it's like, but during the pandemic, people were so bored and they would reach out to like our pages and be like, can I share my story? Can I tell you what's going on right now? And I'm like, I hate to say it, but people don't read anymore. They really don't. So it's like, if you want to post your like super long story, I don't know how much people are going to read of that, but they can sit there and just like kind of do something else and listen to the podcast and they'll listen to what you have to say. And that's kind of the age we're in. So I was like, why don't we do that instead? And so, we had to take a little break for a little while for life, but, people ask all the time if they can be on it just to talk about their epilepsy. And it's like we have a list of people who just want to be on it to talk about, what they've gone through. So it's been great, and it's like I think it's been an outlet for other people too to just let it go.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people like, 'cause we cover certain topics and people be like, thank you so much for talking about this. Oh, hello, dog. Even if we don't think it's that, big, it's just our lives, but we'll post it and people will be like, thank you so much for talking about this. I thought I was the only one who felt this way, or I didn't know this. Thank you for teaching me. And we're like, it actually is helping people. Like, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's like become a safe space for people, to hear other people's stories. And then you're providing this platform for people like myself to listen to and to hear others' stories and whatnot. So that's really awesome. And do you both have, like, given so far, the amount of years you've been working on this, do you have any memorable moments or any highlights of episodes that stuck out? Or
I
yeah.
have a I have a couple. We had Miles Levine on, who is the writer and director of Under the Lights. He came on right before the short film was like playing in festivals, or as it was playing in festivals. So Bree and I joke, we're like, we started talking to him early, like we got
We
him.
nabbed that one first. But yeah.
So he's been really cool to talk to. His story is just really inspiring about working with kids at an epilepsy camp and how that's kind of helped him do what he's doing. Haley from Lemonade for Livy came on. I don't know if you know about that. It's through the American Epilepsy Foundation, and she was working to help raise money for her sister who has epilepsy and cerebral palsy, just by creating like lemonade stands and selling lemonade and donating that money. She started when she was what, 6, or
Like
she was
6,
young.
and it became national, or maybe even international, I think. Yeah.
Um, yeah, there have been a lot. I can't think of anyone else. We've had epilepsy tech or epilepsy monitoring unit techs on there, which was really cool to kind of get their perspective of it, because we just have the laying in bed waiting to see what happens perspective, and then we got the I don't have this, but this is what I see perspective. So that was really interesting too.
I think for me, the most memorable, besides like the guests you said, like I was gonna say Miles was great to have on there and on Livy, all those stuff, but it's like um the response that we've gotten from people has been awesome. Like people have just opened up. That's been the highlight for me, I think. And they want to open up, or they're like you said, like thank you for talking about this and stuff. And it makes us feel seen too, like, oh, we aren't the only ones with this either. And I don't think people realize that, because we talk about it so openly, but sometimes when we talk, we're talking about us too. And then to have it out and have someone be like, "Oh, yeah," or, like, even 100 people understand, it's like, "Oh, it's not just me. I'm not crazy," or something like that. And, we've had, Grace's mom was just on yesterday. It's like we get different perspectives of it. That's, I think, the coolest part for me, and different journeys and stuff.
Yeah, and not only that, but we try and get more men on too, because we realize like the majority of pages are run by women and women seem more open to talk about it. So we try as hard as we can to get men on and share their stories. And I actually have a friend who was on, and he was documented as the first person to be monitored and flatlined during a seizure and then come back. So he has like a pacemaker now, and that's cool. Like you're in medical like studies somewhere for this, and
Mhm.
just hearing their stories and having them share them as well is just really important to us. Like, don't be afraid to we're basically trying to get, don't be afraid to share your story, because it'll help more people than you realize.
I think the most brutal one we had might have been Robert, when he was talking about his, I'm blanking on what that is called right now.
Stevens-Johnson syndrome.
Stevens-Johnson syndrome. Yeah, he still has scars all over his face and stuff like that, but he is totally open about it. And you know about it, but I've never met anybody that's gone through that before. And he was totally open to talking about that, and being a man, it's like, oh, thank you for being vulnerable, because we are trying to like pull them out to talk. Because I get so many guys just being like, I'm so depressed. I'm like, I know. But like what, we need, like, I'm not a man. We need their perspective of it too. Like I go through different stuff. So we're just hoping this will help pull them out of, you know, feeling, I don't know what word, ashamed or something to talk about it.
And more isolated too, I think, because they don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And I I just from what everything I'm hearing, it's so clear that you're creating a really good like safe space, but also this open space for people to share their stories. And like you said, with men, like I've noticed that too. A lot of the epilepsy room pages, it is, you know, women, and we're far more open. But having, like you've been saying, episodes with men that talk about it, like that's really important for other men to hear, and to get all sort of perspectives. And how you said interviewing your mother as well. Like that's something that I've been thinking, that I've always thought about, is the impact it can have on your family and friends, because that is a lot as well. And just to get that perspective for other parents or other siblings or friends who also go through that with having a friend, or loved one with epilepsy. Um,
Yeah, like my mom was saying yesterday, epilepsy, it's not just the patient diagnosed, it's almost like the whole family is diagnosed because it affects everything.
It does.
yeah. And has it been has the journey been emotional for you too, kind of going through this, hearing different stories? Has it been more empowering, a mix of both?
I would say a mix of both. We had the founder of the Danny Did Foundation on. I don't know if you know about them, but it was started after um a 3-year-old, I believe he was 3 at the time, passed away from SUDEP. And his uncle started this foundation. So we had him on to kind of talk about why he does the foundation, you know, why he started the foundation, how it's impacting people, how he's helping reach out to people. And that one was hard because you're talking about a child who passed away from it and they didn't even know that it was a thing. Shut up. Sorry.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say it was about a little bit of both, and it's a little bit humbling too, because some people you're like, oh wow, I didn't realize that could happen. And it's like, we've heard about it, but we didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
So that's where, you know, that's where it's been for me. But it's also been really nice to connect with all these people and like learn all the differences in everybody's journeys, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's exactly what you're doing with all the work you've done with this podcast and within your own journeys. Like it is really building that platform. And I can connect the same with the film, having met so many new people now, and the emotions it brings and the memories it can bring back and the stuff that you didn't know. So yeah, I really appreciate the work that you two have been doing. And with all that being said, I want to see if you have any advice to others living with epilepsy who aspire to do the same, whether it's pursue an art form, pursue a podcast, whatnot, if you had any advice to share.
I would just say if you want to do something, like don't let your epilepsy stop you. We work around it. There are times we've had to reschedule with people because one of us have had a seizure, or we're having an off day, but like they get it. So as long as you're, you know, open with people about it, don't let it stop you. There's, you know, when I was working, it was very like I felt like I had to kind of keep it to myself. I wasn't allowed to talk about it almost. And so it's very freeing to have this now where I can just say, hey, I have it, and you can talk to me if you want.
And I would say, yeah, just do it, because I did not realize how much, like you said, of a weight it feels like lifted when you get it out in the open. It's almost like a different form of coming out, I guess you can say. Like you just, it's like I can connect with people, I can say it, and it's like you have no idea where it will take you, honestly. Because like, look, we became really good friends. I have an amazing following right now. I'm very lucky. I've made tons of friends all over the like different countries, the world. It's honestly one of the best things I've done, even though this diagnosis is not fun. Meeting all these people and connecting with people has been really fun. It's exhausting, so take time for yourself also. I will say that. It can be tiring, but Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really rewarding also.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Like this was really inspiring, and the advice you gave about not letting your epilepsy stopping you and also just going for it is super needed, because you can feel sometimes like you have to hide it, or you have to, like I felt that way. I had to hide it. I didn't want it to impact my work. But then the second I became open, it was this like weight off my shoulder and a wave of support and love, which is what we all need. So that's great. And joining the call. It was so great to hear about your stories and your journey. And for anyone listening, where can they find you both on social media?
So I am epilepsy.living on Instagram,
Mhm.
and Bree is SoCal Epilepsy. And then we also have What's Shaking podcast. But you can also find that in both of our bios if you don't feel like typing all of that out.